hopefully the transition's going on.
Don't see anything yet, Tom.
One moment.
We're not going anywhere.
Wendy, if you click on the link that says YouTube Live, it'll be there.
You want only Wendy to do that?
Anybody can. Just make sure that you mute yourself. And Wendy, if you click on the link that says YouTube Live, it'll be
There we go.
okay. And Carrie.
Okay, you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for your attendance today. What is going to be the first of, let me get this right, 9 sessions being led by Carrie Zimmerman. I'm very pleased that Carrie has engaged our college and very appreciative of our ICC and of Wendy Ornelas for arranging this. Carrie brings an amazing amount of expertise to a situation that we want to address, not only in our college, but in how we serve our communities and our profession. And this began first, and we fully intended to do this back in the spring as a session really focused on unintended bias and helping us to understand that no matter what we say, that we are trying to be open and make the right decisions in terms of social equity and justice and that sort of thing. We don't always understand where we're coming from, that we in fact might harbor unintended biases and ways of approaching situations, and having a better understanding of that, not unlike the way we analyze what we design, just for ourselves, is deeply important. So that was our original intention. And then we had a pandemic. And the pandemic really I thought brought to light many of the things that we had originally wanted to talk about. And along with that pandemic, we realized once again, or were reminded once again, that we had a much longer, long-standing pandemic. And that is one of certainly of a racial bias and some real societal issues that have undermined really a lot of our ability to work together and do the right thing for the broad spectrum of our society, not just for those who are in a great place to take advantage of that. And so having Carrie here to help us to better navigate, to again, not only in our personal lives, but in our professional lives and for those we serve, to understand how these, at first, unrelated things came together and really are deeply related to our to every level of what we do. So I hope that those members of our college community and the university community that may be in attendance as well take full advantage of the 9 sessions that we have this week that should be available to you through the website that is posted for you to see, not only there, but in our chat, not only online, but in our chat. And you'll see that this, in each case, it ties together personally and professionally, and in terms of our design thinking, how we can better serve our society in really a socially equitable and with social justice for all. And I'm so excited that you've agreed to be here, Carrie, and commit so much of your time to this. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to you and our readers.
Thanks, Dean DeNoble. I appreciate your warm welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. There is a wealth of conversation that we need to have. There is a depth of programming that we need to spend some time thinking through. As the Dean mentioned, there's never been a more crucial moment for us to have discussions and dialogue and learn from one another, to sit with one another's lived experiences, for me to hear your story and you to hear mine. This week is about digging into the complex issues of inclusion, of justice, of equity, of building, creating, forging the type of campus community and really the kind of world that we all want to live in. You're a part of a big community. It's not just being a part of K-State. It's not just a part of being in the state of Kansas or the United States. We're global citizens. We are connected to this world that we live in and to one another. And this work that we're talking about, the work of racial justice, the work of understanding what it means to be a person who is valued, to understand what roles that we each play in the structures that have been built around this system of society that we live in. It's lifelong work, and it doesn't get taken care of by checking off a box or attendance at a single seminar. It is lifelong, personal, interrelated work that we do with one another. I live in Washington, D.C., and it right now is the center of a lot of conversations about politics, about the future of our country, about protest and police violence and community safety and access to health care. It's about thinking through who has safe housing, what's it like to live in this community of the United States. I've worked in higher ed for about 20 years. I have run a homeless center. I have taken student groups to 4 continents. I've been able to lead camps and conferences everywhere from posh hotels to places where we used outhouses for 10 days. Through all of that, the thing that I have learned the most is that at our deepest, at our most human level, what all of us want is to be loved and to be truly known and loved for who we are. And so what we're doing this week is having some in-depth conversations. We are going to spend a lot of time this week talking about everything from what goes on in our own brains? What are our own unconscious biases? Can politics be civil in 2020? And I was talking with a friend last week when I said, oh, this is one of the workshops I'm going to do at K-State. Can politics be civil in 2020? And he just said, that's a short seminar. Just say no and say, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. But we're going to dig a little deeper into whether politics actually can be civil. Can we engage? Can we listen? Do we feel like we can hear the perspective of another person? We're going to talk about the conflict of freedom right now, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, how one person's viewpoint might impact their neighbor, what that means for academics. We're going to have a session where we talk about mental health in the age of COVID. This global pandemic is touching every area of our lives. Academics, economics, everything that we are trying to navigate has been touched by the global pandemic. And so what that's doing to people's ability to function, to do their work, to learn, to be healthy, to get to a grocery store, it matters, and it's impacting people's sense of wellness and sense of space. And we're going to talk about mental health, how we're all navigating all of this. We can't really do any of that well, though, unless we're all speaking the same language. So one of the first things we're going to do tomorrow in our first two workshops is establish some common language, establish a way for us to talk about even what we mean when we say words like equality and equity and justice. What do we mean when we're talking about white supremacy or white fragility? What do those words mean? They mean different things to different people. So if we start this week with some common language, with an in-depth understanding of even the vocabulary and the history around some of these in-depth topics, then we're going to be better equipped to learn from each other. We're going to have some tools in our toolbox. They're going to help us understand another person's perspective. So not just this afternoon, but through the rest of this week, I'm going to ask some things of you. I'm going to ask for your engagement, for your honesty, for some vulnerability. I'm going to ask that you respect your own story and the story of those that you're going to engage with. We need honesty and courage in order to have the kind of conversations that are going to help us build, create, craft the world that is safe and welcoming for all of us. I want you to lean into your discomfort. These will not be easy topics, but we're going to be open about them. We need to talk about them. So don't worry about sitting with your fear or frustration or anger or uncertainty or anxiety. We all are feeling pieces of that. So bring them with you. We'll talk about them. The other thing I'm going to ask is that we find a way to celebrate each member of the K-State community. Celebrating our individual stories, our lived experiences, helps us value the dignity of each life that we interact with. It matters that we acknowledge that each one of us is coming to this conversation from very different places in the journey. Some of you have been working with this idea of justice and equity for all of your adult lives. Some of you are just coming to the work, just coming to some understanding around this. The fact that you're entering it all into the conversation is important. And so wherever you come from, whatever your experience is, whatever your background is, or family life, or experiences before this, you're invited to this conversation. We want to engage with one another. This isn't what we designed months ago. We thought we'd be together in classrooms and sitting around tables and drinking coffee and having good conversation. But we have this amazing technology that allows us to engage, and I want us to use it. So when you come to these next sessions, especially our smaller workshops throughout the week, engage in the chat, turn your video on, have these conversations with one another. There really has never been a more important time for these conversations or for your work. The College of Architecture, Planning, and Design is about the work of building community. It's about structures and places and spaces that not only inspire people to think about the buildings that they're in, the environments they're walking through, but you all are creating real societal change through thinking about equity, through thinking about how people live and breathe and interact with the very imaginings that you put into steel and glass and fabric and dirt. There's something remarkable about that, about the work that you're doing. It matters now more than ever. And that's the reason that today we're starting with a conversation and a readers theater program by your peers, a group of student leaders who have volunteered to start a conversation with us, to read some thoughts about what K-State can be, who we can be as people. These are tough topics that we're starting with. This entire week is going to be real and honest and earnest. And so I'm deeply grateful to your student leaders who have stepped forth and said, I want to be a part of this conversation. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves now. And you're going to get to meet them and hear from them. They're going to first introduce themselves, and then they're going to start their part of the presentation. So I'm going to ask you to give them your full attention.
Hello, my name is Talisa, and I'm a 5th year in architecture.
Hi, my name is Gage, and I am a 2nd year in regional community planning.
Hi, I'm Selena Hernandez, and I am a 5th year studying architecture.
Hello, my name is Enoch Akowa, and I'm a 2nd year master's student in regional and community planning.
I'm Anna Rader. I'm a 3rd year in landscape architecture.
Hi, I'm Becca Pedrosa. I am a 4th year in architecture.
Hi, I'm Montserrat Rios, and I'm a 4th year in interior architecture and product design.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Macias. I'm a 5th year Masters of Architecture student.
I am Kansas State.
I am Kansas State.
I am a Wildcat.
We are Kansas State University.
You are Kansas State.
Today, we gather to explore our values,
To consider our role in building,
structuring,
Designing,
in creating a campus community that is welcoming to all and hostile to none.
a community working together to design a world that celebrates diversity, rejects hate, and grapples with the most complex issues of our time.
Today, we gather because our collective voices are powerful.
We gather because we should not, cannot, and will not turn away from our responsibility as members of the KSU community and the world.
we study together, learn together, succeed and struggle together, and the values of our community help define our educational experience.
These values are laid out in our college mission statement, driving us forward to be a comprehensive design community comprising all scales of the design and planning endeavor.
a community informed by a culture of inquiry,
focused on the significant issues facing our society, including environmental stewardship, social equity,
Economic viability,
and aesthetic delight.
The very nature of our work demands that we consider the people and spaces around us.
Our innovative ideas and creative thoughts shapes landscape and lives.
We are visionaries, designers, builders, creators, and planners.
we are envisioning how the physical and material structures of our imagination might mold and shape the living, breathing community that moves in and among our work.
The very nature of our work is one of both soaring ideals and foundational grounding.
We seek to both touch the sky and stare the earth.
ours is the work of possibility.
The work of creation.
The work of shape, form, scaffold, fabric, truss, steel, light, and growth.
We're here to talk about our role in the work of building our community,
To think about where barriers have been built,
To consider where bridges might span divides.
To ponder both building up and tearing down.
We gather to acknowledge this moment in our history, a moment of grief, struggle, and anger, as we grapple with the dual pandemics of COVID-19 and racial and social injustice.
We come together as faculty, students, and staff, as first-year students and doctoral candidates, as graduate students and tenured faculty, as deans and lecturers.
We gather to voice our questions and our commitments,
to voice our fears and our hopes,
to examine our shared values and forge a path forward together,
to honor the lived experiences of each member of our community.
As a member of the KSU community, your story matters.
Your life matters.
your perspective matters.
Your dreams matter.
your safety matters,
your values matter.
Your presence matters.
You matter.
As Wildcats, we strive to demonstrate mutual respect for differing ideas, perspectives, experiences, and personal identities. But striving isn't enough.
We know that too often the words we choose are anything but respectful.
every word we speak has the ability to build someone up,
or tear someone down.
Our words should be spoken with love,
Not hate.
Understanding,
Not fear,
inclusion,
not exclusion.
but too often our words are framed in ignorance or hate.
The words we use to get a laugh.
But in reality, bring tears.
the words we use to make ourselves look big.
The truth is that it points to our smallness.
the words we use casually on social media,
Then real life cause real pain and have real consequences.
The words,
Words.
Words.
Yes.
Words are always more than just words. The words we choose to use are a direct reflection of who we are at our core.
our words have the power to destroy or create.
To promote love or inflate hate.
So watch your words.
your words become your actions.
Watch your actions.
Your actions become your habits.
Watch your habits.
Your habits become your character.
Character.
Your character becomes your destiny.
How will your words, actions, and character impact the world?
We strive for unity in our community.
But we don't always agree.
So how?
How do we?
How do we do more than agree to disagree?
How do we, as learners and scholars,
Architects, designers, and leaders with honor,
Create a space.
A place.
Where all voices are given the choices they need to show their faces with dignity and pride.
we can't simply push our differences aside.
Will we commit to boldly face the issues our college, nation, and world are facing?
Will we ask questions with courage and not be discouraged in facing our fears?
We stand
Will you
here.
raise a hand?
We
Take a
stand
stand.
here.
Stand up for your values.
Value your stances.
Stand out from the crowd.
stand in opposition,
And fight for your position.
We are committed to developing a campus culture in which equity, inclusion, and justice are successfully integrated with the healthy clash of ideas and beliefs.
we believe that me being right does not mean you being wrong.
That seeking to weaken me does not make you strong.
That there's value in our varied and various backgrounds.
We want to use our voices loud and proud.
And commit to being more than just a face in the crowd.
So how?
How do we?
How do we do more than agree to disagree?
How do we live and learn and design and create together in the midst of a global health pandemic and the ongoing and ever-changing landscape of race relations in our country?
We do it together.
We do it by being open to learning from another's lived experiences.
By listening to understand rather than listening to respond.
By sitting with our own sense of discomfort.
By centering the voices of the marginalized and oppressed.
Some of us have been engaged in the fight for equity and justice for our whole lives.
Some of us are just awakening to the struggles of our friends and neighbors.
Some of us live with the weight of oppression and the bitter taste of fear.
Some of us have never known that pain.
Some of us engage as allies, advocates, and supporters. Some of us don't know how.
But we are connected by this place.
We are connected by our work.
We are connected by our very humanity.
So we start these conversations together today.
We owe one another the space and time to both listen and to be heard.
We owe one another the courage to face both our collective history and our conjoined futures.
We've already faced challenges that no other students and faculty have had to face. This academic year isn't what any of us envisioned, and we know we're facing uncertain futures in the days to come.
We're all grieving what we've lost and are struggling to make sense of everything we're feeling.
We want all members of our community to be safe and healthy.
And we want to work together to ensure the KSU community is diligently addressing injustices and inequality in every area of campus.
But sometimes we don't even know where to start.
James Baldwin taught us that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
And so we will face it together.
As KSU students, we have the choice,
The opportunity,
Responsibility.
To create a community where we give space and voice to everyone.
Everyone.
Everyone,
All races,
all religions,
all gender identities,
All sexual orientations.
all abilities.
All wildcats.
we work to create a campus where inclusivity outweighs hate and respect overshadows intolerance.
To build a coalition of learners and leaders who are committed to learning our full history, acknowledging our complicity, addressing systematic inequalities, and working to be actively anti-racist.
It is our responsibility to build this kind of campus community and global community.
Our responsibility.
your responsibility.
This is our education, our campus, our community, our future.
We are Kansas State.
We believe it's important to talk about difficult topics that are realities on campus. Political differences, racism, gender identity, sexual orientation, cultural backgrounds, and religious beliefs.
And we know we haven't always been good at it.
We strive to appreciate the value of differences among people, customs, and viewpoints, and oppose hatred, bigotry, and bias towards others. But we know we're not always successful.
We live in a world where the actions of an individual can incite panic and conflict.
It seems like every week, college campuses are in the news for hazing, binge drinking, racism, violence, vandalism, cheating, scandals, sexual assault, or hideous hate crimes.
Is this just a sign of the times?
We've all watched the videos and read the stories.
We've all seen the snaps and tweets that make people antsy and angry.
Divergent viewpoints that defame and devalue and inflame our communities.
We'd like to think it couldn't happen here.
Not at Kansas State.
Not here.
Across the country, the news stories keep cropping up.
They pop up so often, we've almost become immune to the shock it creates.
Almost.
Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, video after video after video.
Can this really be happening again?
It happens on campuses so often that we can't process the details of one story before the next one is crowding our newsfeed.
It's happening so often.
Too often.
The statistics are troubling.
Every year,
More than 1 million college students are targets of bias-driven slurs or physical assaults.
every day,
At least one hate crime occurs on a college campus.
every minute,
A college student somewhere sees or hears racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic, or otherwise biased words or images.
This doesn't have to happen here.
We can work to change the statistics.
We can draft a new plan.
We can speak up and say,
Not on our campus.
Not in our organizations.
Not in our professions.
Not at Kansas State.
Not here.
Not us.
Not ever.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said in his letter from Birmingham jail, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly.
Whatever affects one wildcat
affects us all.
Building an inclusive, equitable, and just community means intentionally speaking out against hate, racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, violence, injustice, and disrespect.
It means actively listening to other students and faculty whose experiences are different than ours.
It means dismantling systems that are unjust.
It means imagining and constructing new ways of living together in community.
And it means finding the courage to look within ourselves at our own words and choices and examine what role we play in the struggles our community faces.
We often cause pain, isolation, or anger without even knowing it.
With our offhanded comments,
Ignorant assumptions,
Unintentional labeling,
or thoughtless gestures.
Our ignorance or apathy can no longer be an excuse.
When we know better, we do better.
being part of our community means learning from one another. It means realizing each person comes with a unique story and personal experiences that inform who they are and what they believe.
I am more than what you can see.
I am more than just my skin color.
I am more than just what I wear.
I am more than just who I love and how I express myself.
I am more than just my abilities.
I am more than just what God I may or may not worship.
I am more than just my bank account.
I am Kansas State. You are Kansas State.
Too often we assume everyone has the same background,
Culture,
Privileges,
Resources,
And opportunities that we do.
Too often we make assumptions about another person. Sometimes we say or do offensive things without realizing how we've impacted that person.
But being a wildcat means we choose to learn and be open to new ideas, people, and experiences.
it means a commitment to fairness and justice and the work of anti-racism.
It also means reporting incidents that you know have happened. Hazing,
cheating,
Vandalism,
Sexual assault,
Discrimination.
or bullying.
Wildcats should choose to engage in dialogues and act in the face of injustice.
The responsibility lies with each of us.
silence is complicity. So talk to a professor or your advisor.
visit the Dean of Students' office,
go to the counseling center or health center.
Tell someone.
Tell someone.
tell someone.
We can't assume that another person will take care of it.
We can't assume that another person will speak out.
We can't wait for another person to stand up.
We must be that person.
If not you, then who?
In the words of Elie Wiesel, a writer and Nazi concentration camp survivor, I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented.
So today, when we see people losing their safety or their dignity or their very lives because of their skin color,
Or gender identity,
Or immigration status,
or political affiliation,
Or family structure,
or economic level,
Or faith background, or sexual orientation.
or mental health.
or physical ability, we find the courage to say,
not at Kansas State.
We are in this together. We stand as one.
Whatever affects one wildcat
affects us all.
In the words of Audre Lorde, it is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences.
We want to celebrate everything that makes you, you.
And we want to acknowledge everything that makes KSU, KSU.
Kansas State's story begins long before it was established as a land-grant institution. It begins with the story of native nations, including the Cow, Osage, and the Pawnee. The KSU story cannot be fully and truthfully told without this indigenous context.
KSU Wildcats now come from the Kansas prairies and from small towns and large cities across the United States.
And from countries like Myanmar, Ghana, Canada, Paraguay, Pakistan, and every part of the globe.
We are Jewish, agnostic, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, atheist, Buddhist, and everything in between.
We are every shade of skin color, every creed of faith, every political leaning, generation, ability level, gender identity, and sexual orientation.
We are Kansas State.
You are Kansas State.
Our common ties bind us together, and our differences make us stronger.
Each individual story and experience add to the richness of KSU community.
Your story matters.
My story matters.
I am non-binary, an ally, a human. My name is Talisa.
My name is Gage Roberts. I am white, I am privileged, but I am more than ready to be part of the change.
My name is Selena Hernandez. I am a first-generation college student who struggles with my mental health, but I aspire to be the first in my family to graduate from university and pave the path for people like me.
I am African, may a Ghanaian. I am that person who fears my accent or skin color will not get me the position I deserve. Octavius Black once said, I am not different from you, I am different like you. I am Inokakua and I do not let others define me, I define myself.
My name is Anna Rader. I'm white, a Christian, and a feminist. I struggle with anxiety in public speaking. I'm ready to speak up and use my voice because I know that I cannot grow where I am comfortable.
An out-of-state student and bilingual. My name is Rebecca Pedrosa. Me siento segura y en casa cuando me comunico con mis colegas de la universidad en mi lenguaje nativo.
My name is Montserrat Rios Lucia. Estoy orgullosa de ser mexicana. I am an immigrant. I struggle with depression and anxiety, but I can say for certain that these struggles have made me resilient and strong. They've taught me to appreciate life and the people around me.
My name is Alexandra. I'm a proud Ecuadorian woman, an artist, athlete, and most importantly, an older sister, and I am Kansas State.
We are all Kansas State.
You are Kansas State.
Marian Wright Edelman, founder of the Children's Defense Fund, reminds us that a lot of people these days are waiting for MLK or Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi to come back. They are gone. We are it. It is up to us now. It is up to you. More than ever before, our world needs more goodness, more kindness, more caring, more action, and more you in it.
Every day, you would make choices that will impact your future and the future of others.
Your work will frame the experiences of those around you.
Your ideas will inspire those around you.
Your creativity will bolster your community to address the most complex crises we are facing.
We are here to learn from one another.
To value one another.
To support one another.
And we are here to build structures and societies.
To weave the fabric of design in the fabric of stable, equitable communities.
Today we commit.
Today we pledge.
Today we promise.
To find our courage.
To find our voice.
In the words of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you.
Fight for your ideals.
Fight for your neighbors.
Fight for yourselves.
fight to build a kind of world that is inclusive, equitable, and just.
And do it in a way that will lead others to join you.
We have the power.
We have the choice.
We each must be the change we wish to see.
And so we ask,
Who will you choose to be?
No matter where you're sitting right now, you should clap, raise your voices, snap your fingers for these incredible students and the stories that they just told. I was watching the YouTube chat as you all were doing the reading of the Reader's Theater. And it was such pride and joy from your colleagues and faculty members. Thank you, readers. Thank you, leaders and professionals in these fields that you're entering. There is such power in truth. There is such power in vulnerability. There is such power in common, joined together work to build the kind of community that we know we need. There are lots of reasons to be having these workshops this week. We've talked about several of them. We've talked about the global health pandemic. We have talked about the pinnacle of racism that we are dealing with in our streets and our schools and our homes, and how that has come to a head this summer. We have talked about politics. We have talked about what's happening in our world. And really what it comes down to is the humanity of each one of us and our stories and the power that that brings with us. So there are lots of reasons to have this conversation this week. We are all interconnected. We are woven together. The quote that Enoch so eloquently read was by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. You see, we're caught, we're connected. There's no getting away from one another. Even with quarantine, even with social distancing, we are woven together and our connection is inescapable. That means we owe one another. We owe one another our best. So why are we having these conversations this week? Because it's too important not to. Because we need to join the fight. We need to join the voices of people who have been engaged in the work of social justice for decades, for centuries, or even for weeks or days. We talked about the fact that even the very land that K-State was founded on and the beautiful buildings that you all go to class in, it's land that was stolen from the Kaw, the Osage, the Pawnee nations. So we owe it to our ancestors. We owe it to the people who will come generations after us. It's important because focusing on the significant, real issues facing society, it's mentioned in your very mission statement as a college, that what you want to do is focus on the significant issues, including environmental stewardship, social equity, economic viability, and aesthetic delight. Too often, design is only accessible to people with lots of money. It's only accessible to people who have the ability to reach out to experts and bring that beauty and aesthetic delight in. But you have the ability to change that story, to change the future for people and change their trajectories. So the power that you hold in your hands is one of the reasons that it's important for us to have these conversations, because your impact is incredibly powerful. I have a personal tie, a personal connection to the field of architecture, and I'm going to show you a picture. So you may be wondering why I have popped up here on the screen a photo of the Georgia Tech College of Architecture class of 1957. If you look at this picture that I pulled from their yearbook, there's some things that's pretty quickly evident in this. Everybody's really white. They all have the same haircuts. They're all men. And so this is what the 1957 class of architecture looked like at Georgia Tech. This is actually the freshman class in 1953. You know what? I said they were all men. They're actually not. Right here, circled, there is one woman, and she was in the very first class of architects that went to Georgia Tech. There were 5 women on campus at the in the entire university. So in the class of 1953, they had, you know, several thousand men and 5 women. And this woman, Helen Kimbrough was her name, and she joined the College of Architecture because it was her dream to be a designer, to be an architecture, to build buildings that touched the sky and impacted people's lives. She did not have a good experience. She never had a class with another woman. All of her professors were men. There were no women's restrooms anywhere on campus. And her experience was one where if she needed help, assistance, guidance, the only people available to her were men. And she sat through the first semester of classes. And I'm going to tell you 2 stories about things that happened to her. Oh, and you should also probably know that she's my mother. And so these are her stories that I heard growing up. So my mom, in these very first classes, she's sitting there very first week, she gets the syllabus and she's in her first class. It's a big lecture hall. And so this is her very first class of her college career in architecture, and she's meeting her professor. And this will be the person that will guide her through this process of fulfilling her dream. And as he reads through the syllabus, you know, he pulls up this paper that's going to explain the contract for their course. He's going through examination requirements and testing what the grading is going to be like and how to contact him in office hours and which text they need to use and all of those pieces that you all get in your regular syllabus. And then he stopped and he gave some of the classroom rules that he had for the course. And they included everything from don't show up late. If the door is closed and it's after course time, don't even bother coming in. I don't want anyone coming late. Be dressed appropriately. They expected suits and ties. He wanted people to look professional. Don't bring any food or drink into the classroom. That was way out of bounds. And don't, whatever you do, leave to go to the restroom at any point during class. If you can't hold it for an hour, well, then you don't deserve to be in this class. And he stopped at this point and said, you know, for years, I've taught here 34 years. And this whole time I've given this same rule every year about don't get up and go to the bathroom. And I usually end it with a joke where I say, you know what, if you really get in a bind and you've got to go to the bathroom and class isn't over yet, I keep a box of rubber bands in my desk. But now that we've let girls in the class, I guess I'm also going to have to put some corks in my desk drawer. And that was her first class. In her second class, as they're showing slides of different types of buildings and columns and explaining Ionic and Doric and the different terms of architecture, a professor, as he drops the slides down of famous buildings and structures and types of architecture, the next thing that he showed was a photo of a naked woman, and again turned to the class, and my mother being the only woman in there, and said, oh, I guess now that we have girls in the class, I'm going to need to rethink some of my slides. So when you ask, why are we having these conversations? Why are we talking about equity and justice and diversity? And what you're talking about happened 65, 70 years ago. It did. But our very colleagues, peers that you go to school with, they have had some similar experiences around the country. So when we talk about why this matters, it's because each of you matter. Each of you should be able to come to your university, to sit in your courses, and know that your dignity is going to remain intact, that you're respected for your knowledge, for your potential, for what you can bring to this field, and that you will have peers and faculty and staff that can help you in this process. So as we look at this first class of women at Georgia Tech, and we think about my mom, the one woman in the course, she is a person that helped me think through what it means to stand out, what it means to be someone who doesn't look like everybody else. And that's why we want to have this conversation. Here's the other reason it's important. You heard this statistic in the presentation that, that the readers did. We saw this part where they talked about what it meant to be on a college campus. And so the Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, Alabama, they track hate crimes on college campuses, and they keep a running record of it. And here is what they have gathered in the last several years. Every year, more than 1 million college students are targets of bias-driven slurs or physical assaults. Every day, at least one hate crime occurs on a college campus. And every minute, a college student somewhere sees or hears racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, or otherwise biased words or images. Around the clock, every minute, every day, every year. The statistics matter. The statistics show us that we're a microcosm of what's happening in the larger world. Each one of you has value at K-State. Each one of you also has power and the ability to change the experience that every student has. Here's another statistic from them. In the last 36 months, reported hate crimes and bias acts have risen 82% in the last 3 years. Now, these are just the reported hate crimes. We know that too often these crimes go unreported. It's a joke, it's music that's played. It's a microaggression that happens. Someone comments about your hair or your race or your family structure, or whether or not you even belong in the space that you are. So why we're talking about it is because we have the ability to build. You all are builders and designers and dreamers and architects. Your entire life work is about creating environments for people to interact with, both the environment and one another. There's power in that. There's influence in that. You all should have the undergirding that you need to make sure you reach your goal professionally, personally, but also have the sense of empowerment that you all can and should use your voices in a way that's going to build the kind of society that we want. All right, last data and statistics. This is from the Department of Labor in the United States Department of Labor. 72% of women report instances of gender discrimination and harassment. 81% of people of color have been the only person of their race in a college or graduate classroom. 69% of postgraduate students of color have never had a faculty member of their race teach them. 72% of LGBTQ people feel uncomfortable sharing personal details at work. And 82% of people with a physical disability report being passed over for jobs, promotions, or projects. We're dealing with facts and figures. I know that you all are people where it matters when we talk about science and measurements and getting things right. So the individual stories that each of you have are important. It's also important that we know the numbers. So the reasoning behind this week, these conversations, is so you have space and time for you to tell your story, for you to think through how you're going to live and breathe and be in this world. And so although this session that we're doing right now is less interactive than we would have hoped it was going to be pre-COVID, the following sessions this week, we're going to be able to be in small groups and have dialogue and see one another's faces. There's also a chance right now for you to put a question or a comment into the chat on YouTube. We have people watching that and are going to offer those up if you've got a question that you want to ask. But as you think through this week and the work that you're going about in studios and in classes, a lot of it is about deciding not just the work you're going to do, but the person you're going to be in the midst of this. And so I have one final story for you. And this started my freshman year of college. I did my undergraduate work at Vanderbilt. And part of our core curriculum was that we needed to do a service project that was significant to our major. It had to have something to do with the work that we wanted to do. Well, I was a creative writing major. I was in the English department, and where I got placed to do my service learning project was in a youth prison. And my role was to go at 6 a.m. on Tuesday mornings and try to help 2 young women who didn't know how to read. They were 14 and 16 in this youth detention center. So I dutifully, fall semester, freshman year as an 18-year-old, was at the gates at 6 a.m. of the detention center. And I spent time with these 2 young women. I learned a lot about the world and them and myself, but that's not what the story's about. The story's about what happened on my way home, on my way back to campus after this particular morning. It was toward the end of the semester, so it was late November. I think we'd already been back from Thanksgiving, maybe. It was cold outside is what I remember, and foggy. And so it's 8:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock. I'm coming back to campus. And if any of you know anything about Nashville, you will know this picture I'm about to put up. It is of this exit at Broadway and Demonbreun Street. And Vanderbilt is one direction and downtown is the other. And so I am just pulling up onto this exit ramp that you see here in the photo. And at this exit ramp, there's a stoplight at the end of it. And in Nashville, at this particular stoplight, it's an intersection like one you may have in whatever town or city that you're from, where always on the guardrail right at the stoplight was a person asking for money, holding up a cardboard sign. It didn't matter if it was the middle of the day or the middle of the night. There was always a person at that guardrail, at that stoplight. Well, on this particular morning, 8 a.m., foggy, I've done my 2 hours of working with these 2 wonderful young women at the detention center, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm like, I am doing something good in the world. We're making some progress. I mean, I really was feeling kind of arrogant at this moment. Like, I am doing such good things. I'm patting myself on the back, and I pull up to this stoplight, and I'm the first car. The light just turned yellow, and I'm stopped there, and it's a long light. And you know, if you've been at this intersection in whatever town that you're in, you know that it can be awkward to have someone standing right at your car window holding up a sign. So on this particular morning, I mean, this is a long light. I glanced over at the person standing there, and I see this sign. Homeless, hungry, will you help? And as I looked at the person holding this sign, I was surprised that it was a woman, because for whatever reason, in my small town, not spent much time in a city background, I had this image in my head of what homeless people looked like. And I thought it was going to be a man with a beard and maybe a backpack. And it wasn't. It was a woman, and she looked like she was, I don't know, 40, 45 years old maybe. And she's holding up this sign, and it just kind of struck me. Homeless, hungry, will you help? And the you is underlined. And I had a brief moment of thinking, she's talking to me. Will I help? And so I heard in the back of my head, in my small town voice, I heard the old women from my neighborhood and my school and my church, Miss Agnes and Miss Blanche, say, hey, Carrie, when you go off to the big city, you know, don't give people money. Don't give your social security number out. Don't let strangers in your car. Like, I could hear them. And I could hear them say, don't give street people money because they will buy drugs with them. If you in your head heard the word drugs or alcohol, you know the same old women that I do who said the same things maybe to you. But I heard them say that, and I thought, oh, Miss Agnes, Miss Martin, I can't give them money. They're going to buy, they probably said the drugs, like someone might say the Walmart. And so they said, don't give anybody money. And I thought, but it says she's hungry. Well, across the intersection was a McDonald's. So the light turns green. I pull into this McDonald's and I walk in and I buy, I kid you not, all of the Egg McMuffins. I buy every Egg McMuffin they have and 2 cups of coffee. It's like a sack of 18 Egg McMuffins. And I walk through the intersection, I wait on the lights to change, and I walk back over to this woman standing with her sign. And I say to her eloquently, McMuffin. And luckily she was better at this than I was. And she said hello and told me her name, which I had failed to do. And she took the Egg McMuffin and she took a cup of coffee and she asked if I wanted to sit down. So I did. I sat down on the guardrail, and this is what I learned from her. Her name was Lydia, and she was 42 years old, and she lived in her car with her 8-year-old daughter. They hadn't always lived in their car. It was a pretty new development for them. It had been 2 or 3 months. And she talked about how she was doing everything that she could to keep the two of them together and to get Lydia to school, to get her daughter to school every morning. And Lydia said to me, I used to have a job, and I had a house, and I had a husband, and I had a car. But then life didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to. You see, she got sick. And when she got sick, she lost her job. When she lost her job, she lost her health insurance. And when she lost her job, her husband didn't stick around because he didn't want to care for somebody who was sick and unemployed. And we have other words for what we'll talk about, the kind of person that he was, but he's not the point of the story. Lydia is. And so she lost her house and her career, but she kept her daughter. And so she got her daughter to school early every morning, and she waited for all of the social service agencies to open. They open about 9 o'clock in the morning. And so between 7:30 when she dropped her daughter off and 9 o'clock when she could get to whatever job assistance, Social Security office, anything to get some help, she asked for money. She panhandled. She stood at this intersection with a sign up that said, homeless, hungry, will you help? And so as she eats her Egg McMuffin and as she's talking to me, she told me that she had learned some things in the time that she had been on the street in the last few weeks. She talked about the fact that of the hundreds and hundreds of cars who come by this stoplight every time it turns, she had learned that there were 3 types of people in the world, and everybody fit into one of these 3 categories. And as I'm sitting there and she's eating her Egg McMuffin and drinking her coffee, she says, Carrie, do you want to know what the 3 types of people are? And I did. And so she told me. And she said, there's group number 1, and there aren't many people in this group. She said, this is a group of people who are mean, nasty, hate-filled. She said, I've been spit on. I've been cursed at. Racial epithets have been thrown my way. I've been propositioned. I've had drinks thrown at me. I've had people tell me to, get off the street and quit dirtying up the city and go back where I came from. And she said, but that's not many people. It's a really small percentage. And I thought, okay, I'm not in group number 1. And I felt pretty good about not being in group number 1. And she said, then there's a second group of people, and it's also a small percentage of the population. And she said, these people are kind. She said, this is the percentage. These are the handful of people who show some kind of humanity, a smile, an acknowledgement that I'm there. They might hand me a bottle of water or some extra coins, and in my head, I thought, bring you a sack full of Egg McMuffins. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm like, I am squarely in group 2. I have done the good thing. I have shown my humanity. I have gone above and beyond, really. I didn't just give her some. I went and bought the food and walked across. And I have learned about her life, and I have sat here on this guardrail. And really, I was feeling pretty full of myself. And so she takes one more bite of her Egg McMuffin and she says, then there's the third group. And this is where almost everybody is. Almost every car, almost every interaction, almost every person that walks past me on the street. She said, almost everybody right here. She said, they're in group 3, which I call the radio station changers. And it took me a second to realize what she meant. Because if you're driving your car and somebody's over here at your window and you're uncomfortable and you don't want to look at the sign that they're holding up, the radio's this way. And you're going to turn and change the station or check your phone or knock a French fry out of the console that's in the middle between the seats, or dig into your backpack, or open the glove compartment, or do anything that you can do to not look this direction. That's group number 3. And she said it's almost everybody. And I knew in that moment I was not in group number 2. I lived in group number 3. I had been in that intersection hundreds of times. I had seen a person hundreds of times. One time I looked and did something. Once. I wasn't in group number 2. I'm not in group number 2. I'm in group number 3. I was a radio station changer. I was an avoider, because you see, for me, my life was easier, safer, better if instead of reading the sign, looking into the face of the person that was there, my life was easier if I didn't pay attention and looked forward or looked away and then went on with my day. So as we continued to talk and I continued to sit with who I actually was, I realized that if you choose to look, if you choose to see a person, to hear their story, to listen to them, then you have to act. You have to either make a conscious choice to engage, to invest, to care about, or you have to make a conscious choice to look away, to ignore, to not see. And I didn't want to be that person. And so the longer we talked and she told me more about her life, I learned that she had a master's degree, she had an MBA, she had an undergrad degree, she'd had a home. And so at this moment, as she's telling me more about herself, I realized while she's eating her Egg McMuffin, I have been holding her sign the whole time. I'm like leaning over this sign on the guardrail, listening as she tells me about the 3 types of people that live in the world. And hundreds of cars had gone by in this 30 minutes or 40 minutes that I'm out there. And I looked at her and I looked at myself, and no one in any of those cars could have told us apart. Blue jeans, gray hooded sweatshirts. We're both sitting on the guardrail, eating an Egg McMuffin, drinking a cup of coffee. And I, at that moment, was holding up the sign. And I knew that the position that I was in was not because of anything I had done or earned or deserved. The position that she was in was not because of anything she had done or earned or deserved. At our core, we were the same as humans, as aching, bleeding, breathing human beings. And so the last question she asked me was, hey, who do you want to be? You know, she knew I was in college. We talked about that. And so I start saying to her, well, I'm a creative writing major and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Maybe I'm going to go to law school. Maybe I'm going to go to grad, and start talking about jobs. And she stops me and she says, I didn't ask you what you're going to do. I asked you who you're going to be. And that question and my conversation with her shifted the entire trajectory of my life. It forced me to look at people differently. It forced me to think about the humanity of other people differently. It made me ask myself, who else around me is holding up a sign and asking for help? What do those signs say? What would be on mine? What can we do as fellow travelers on this journey to stick up for one another? What can we do in this moment, in this life, to be there for one another? And it did change where I went and what I did. And I ended up running a homeless center for a while out of grad school, and it shifted the graduate program that I went to, and I never saw her again. I spent 3 more years in Nashville, and I looked for her frequently. I never saw her back in that intersection. If I was downtown, I would always keep my eye open. So I don't know what happened to Lydia. I don't know what happened to her daughter. I don't know if they got the help they needed, but I'm indebted to her. I'm indebted to her for that interaction. In the script, the beautiful job that the readers did in talking about what we owe one another. I owe Lydia something. We owe something to each other to see one another. And that's going to be the core, the heart of a lot of the conversations that we're going to have this week. A lot of our dialogue is going to be understanding what it means to be in community together, what it means to build, what it means to support, to scaffold, to undergird, what it means to weave together spaces and places and arenas where people are interacting and living and having their lives unfold. You have the ability, the power, the impact to shift some of that in your work, in your career, in your sphere of influence here at the university, whether you're a faculty member, the dean, a first-year student, a post-bac student, a fifth year, wherever you fall into this framework, you have a voice. Now, too often we fall into category number one that Lydia talked about. Too often we are the people not valuing those around us. Too often we don't understand our own unconscious biases that we bring to the table. We don't understand our own privilege. We don't often engage in the work of anti-racism. We too often have the privilege to turn off hard news stories because they don't impact us. Too often we're not joining with our siblings, brothers and sisters in the fight for justice and equity and community. And so this week, I am offering you an invitation to that journey, to that conversation, whatever your perspective is, whatever your background is, whatever your story is. We want you to join us in the dialogue, in the learning from one another, in the honoring of each person's space and place and position in the K-State family. You know, we talk a lot about the K-State family, and in the work that I've gotten to do with your campus, that phrase has come up multiple times. Now, you should know I worked for a Big 12 rival of yours for about a decade. I worked at TCU. And I've been on your campus for some football games that sometimes went the Horned Frogs' way and sometimes often it did not. But I knew the concept of family that was connected to K-State. And for some people, that's a powerful image. It's about inclusion. It's about being enveloped in something and welcomed and hugged and good cooking and kissed on the cheek and all the things that family means. But for other people that are part of your community, family hasn't been there for them on campus, which means we know there's work to do. We know that there are massive strides we need to take. The work has started. There are so many staff, faculty, student leaders committed to this work, but it only is going to be successful when we all join it from wherever we are on the path and on the journey. So thinking about whether sometimes you're in Lydia's group 1 or group 2 or group 3, let me say this. None of us ever get it right all the time. I said I had built a house in group number 3 of looking away, being a radio station changer. Every day I think about, will I respond? Will I speak up? Will I say something? And I read somewhere, you know, this summer as we were all grappling with the deaths, the murders of Black and brown bodies of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and thinking through, where is justice in this? As I thought through that, I heard someone say, if you've ever wondered how you would have responded during the Civil War and slavery and abolition, if you ever wondered what role you would have played during the Holocaust, well, you're doing that now. There's a lot of truth in that. This is the moment in our history, the history of the world, the history of our country, of your community, of the K-State family, how we respond, how we learn, how we change, how we sit with our own uncomfortable. There's power in that. And so we're inviting you to that journey. One final piece to think about as we think about this work that we're doing is better said by one of the great warriors in this work. And I will let her words speak to that. The late, great Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, if you want to be a true professional, you will do something outside yourself, something to repair tears in your community, something to make life a little better for people less fortunate than you. I think that's what a meaningful life is, living not for oneself, but for one's community. So sit with those words. You're all working to be professionals. Many of you already are. You want to, in your field, make a difference, make an impact, make a change. What we're seeking are the words that Justice Ginsburg had framed in her office. Zedek, Zedek Turdoff, justice, justice you shall pursue. So this week, as we talk about justice, as we talk about inclusivity, as we talk about what it means to build an inclusive, equitable, just society, think of the people who've come before us, on whose shoulders that we stand. And remember that there are signs everywhere. What everyone is looking for is human kindness. So we're going to enter into our dialogues and conversations with kindness. We're going to enter in with the ability to have conversations with one another, to have dialogue, to welcome one another to the journey, to the work, because it is work. It requires our very best, and it requires our engagement. So I know that you're going to bring your best to this. We have workshops coming up tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the foundations of diversity dialogue. If you have thought, I want to be more engaged in this, maybe you're a part of a majority population. You might be straight or white or Christian or cisgendered and heterosexual and think, I want to do this work, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to use the wrong word. I don't want to be offensive. And so you haven't fully stepped into some of this. We're going to talk about just even what the language is and asking any questions that anyone needs to ask in that space. We're going to talk about politics. You know, people's polite grandparents in the South would always say, you know, we don't talk about money, politics, or religion. Well, we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk about how we can move past just agreeing to disagree. We want to engage. We want to have dialogue. So come to that session. We're going to have sessions on unconscious biases that we all have, how we recognize them, what we do about it, how we think about the way we view our lives through the filters that we all bring to the table. We're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about freedom, academic freedom, freedom of speech. And really all of this is about how do we live in community? How do we go about the work of building and growing the kind of K-State family that is welcoming to all? That's what we need at this moment. More human kindness. I have appreciated the time I have gotten to spend with you all. Thank you for being with us, for sharing. There were great comments in the chat. I'm going to ask Wendy if there are any questions that came up on the YouTube chat that we need to answer, if she can let me know either in our chat or she can unmute herself and let me know that. But Wendy, are there any comments or questions from the YouTube chat that we need to talk about?
So there are lots of comments, but no questions.
Great. I hope you will save your questions for the upcoming workshops. I will talk much less in the upcoming days, so your voices will have center stage, because it's about your experience, your stories. We want to spotlight and center the experiences that you have had as a member of the community, where you want to go, how you want to build. Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for spending these precious moments with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you the rest of this week. The link is available for all of the workshops on the college website. I want to thank again both the dean for being so welcoming, for the committee, for ICC, and particularly there was funding that was provided by the SGA. So the Diversity Programming Committee through SGA is one of the really important groups that made this possible. So know that this work is a priority to your college, to the university, to students. So I'm grateful to get to have this time with you all this week, and I will see hopefully a lot of you all tomorrow. Thanks and good night.
Thank you, Carrie, so much. It's been really amazing. Appreciate it.
I second that. Incredible. Very much appreciated. I'm so proud of the students. Thank you for your effort in working with them, both you and Wendy and everybody else. Really, truly spectacular.
Yeah, the students have been really wonderful. All right, I think we're going to turn off of YouTube and stop the live stream. Thanks so much, everybody.